Have you ever actually touched anything in your entire life? You think you are sitting on a chair right now. You think your fingers are pressed against your screen. You believe the physical world is solid, concrete, and real. Wrong. Not just a little wrong, fundamentally wrong. The truth is, you have never touched a single physical object since the day you were born. Right now, you are hovering exactly 1 angstrom, 1/10,000,000th of a meter, above your seat. Your body is physically levitating on an invisible cushion of quantum repulsion. You have felt this repulsion your entire life. When you stub your toe, clap your hands, or hug someone you love, your brain tells you it's a physical impact. But what you are really feeling is the violent clash of invisible quantum force fields pushing back against your own. Empty space is repelling you. If your atoms actually touched the objects around you, they would fuse, releasing the energy of a thermonuclear bomb. I'm going to completely rewrite how you see the world. Let me show you. Try this right now. Press your index fingers together. Harder. Squeeze them until the skin turns white. You feel pressure, right? Stop. Here's the part nobody tells you. Your fingers aren't touching. They are screaming at each other from a distance. Between the skin of your left finger and the skin of your right finger, there is a tiny microscopic chasm of empty space. It feels solid, it feels like contact, but it is entirely an illusion fabricated by your brain. So if you aren't touching your fingers, what exactly is pushing back? What is this invisible wall keeping your atoms apart? To answer that, we have to shrink down, way down. We must step inside the ghostly architecture of the atom itself. Let's shrink down. Imagine you are standing in the middle of a massive sports stadium. This stadium is a single atom in your fingertip. Look down at the 50-yard line. See that single tiny grain of rice sitting there? That is the nucleus, the core, where all the heavy mass lives. Now look up at the highest seats in the distant stands. You see a microscopic swarm of gnats buzzing furiously at the speed of light. Those are the electrons. And between that grain of rice and those gnats, absolutely nothing. Void, vacuum, empty space. Your body is constructed from trillions of these empty stadiums, which means you, my friend, are 99.99% empty space. If I magically extracted all the empty space from your entire body right now, you would shrink down to the size of a microscopic speck of dust. Now watch what this implies. If you are mostly empty space, and the chair beneath you is mostly empty space, why don't you fall straight through it? Why doesn't the empty stadium of your body simply phase through the empty stadium of the chair, like two phantoms passing in the night? People say it is because matter is solid. Wrong. Solid is just a label, a comforting bedtime story we tell ourselves so we don't completely freak out. This is where your intuition fails. The secret is not in the grain of rice. It is in those gnats buzzing in the stands, the electrons. These electrons are not just tiny, hard balls of matter. They are smeared out. They exist as a cloud of probability, a jittering, vibrating, angry field of negative electrical charge. When you bring two atoms close together, those negative clouds crash into each other. And what do two negative charges do? Exactly. They violently repel each other, like trying to physically crush the wrong ends of two extremely powerful neodymium magnets together. They slip, they slide, they aggressively push back. The harder you push against them, the harder they fight back against your fingers. That push, that intense magnetic resistance, that is exactly what your human brain calls touch. It is pure, invisible quantum force. But wait, it gets infinitely weirder. Electromagnetism is only half the story here. If it was just about negative charges repelling, atoms might still find a sneaky way to squeeze past each other. But they never do. Because there is a deeper, more absolute law of physics at play, a law that strictly forbids trespassing. So why can't those buzzing electron clouds just slip past one another? If everything is mostly empty space, why can't they just share the room? Because the universe hates roommates. This is a rule so strict it dictates the shape of reality itself. In physics, we call it the Pauli exclusion principle. Think of someone you know. Imagine trying to stand in the exact same physical space as them, not next to them, inside them. Impossible, right? At the quantum level, electrons are the ultimate divas. They absolutely refuse to share their quantum state. They demand their own exclusive VIP section. Let me say that again. No two electrons can occupy the exact same quantum state at the same time. It is a hard limit of nature. When the electrons in your finger get close to the electrons in your phone screen, they are essentially trying to park in the exact same microscopic parking spot. The universe looks at this and says, absolutely not. Space itself pushes back. It creates a literal force, a rigid, impenetrable quantum wall. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. The harder you push your finger against the glass, the more you are squeezing those empty electron clouds together. You are forcing them to overlap. The electrons violently resist. They jiggle, they wobble, they scream, back off. To avoid sharing the same space, they are forced to jump into higher, more frantic energy states. They buzz harder and faster. And that energetic pushback, that sudden violent repulsion radiating outward from the atomic level, that is the physical sensation of a solid object. People say things feel hard because they are dense. Wrong. Things feel hard because quantum mechanics actively forbids matter from overlapping. You are not feeling wood or glass. You are feeling a mathematical law of the universe pushing against your skin. If you were the size of an atom, touching a table wouldn't feel like hitting a flat surface. It would feel like walking into a massive, invisible wind tunnel, an electromagnetic hurricane blowing you backward. But if this is all happening at the microscopic scale, how does that signal actually get to your brain? How does an invisible hurricane of electrons trick your mind into feeling the texture of a wooden desk? To understand that, we have to look at the invisible wires buried deep inside your own body. So how does an invisible quantum hurricane trick your brain into feeling a smooth wooden desk? This single fact breaks everything you know about biology. Your body doesn't actually have touch senses, not in the way you think. You have tiny electromagnetic shock absorbers buried under your skin. We call them mechanoreceptors. Imagine a row of dominoes stretching from your fingertip all the way up your arm to your brain. When you press your finger against a table, the electrons in the table aggressively push the electrons in your outer skin cells. They don't touch, they just repel. They magnetically shove each other. That shove forces your skin's electron clouds to wobble. They jiggle violently against the cells right beneath them. A microscopic chain reaction of invisible shoving begins. Push, wobble, snap. The force cascades down into your tissue. It squeezes those mechanoreceptors. They stretch. They physically warp under the invisible quantum pressure. Look, when they stretch far enough, they snap open tiny molecular gates. Sodium ions flood in. A literal spark of electricity is born. Zap! That electrical jolt shoots up your arm at 250 miles per hour. It rockets up your spinal cord and crashes into your brain. And your brain? It translates that tiny electrical zap into a thought. Ah, the table is hard. Beautiful. You never touched the table. You just felt the echo of an electromagnetic turf war happening 10 billionths of a meter outside your body. If your nerve endings were the size of giant oak trees, you would see this perfectly. You would see the table's energy field physically bending the branches of the nerve tree without a single leaf ever making contact. Everything you have ever felt is just a chain reaction of magnets pushing other magnets, a symphony of repulsive force fields. You are just a walking antenna, a biological machine perfectly tuned to detect invisible quantum storms. And this is where physics feels like absolute magic. People say, I can feel the texture of this fabric. Wrong. You are feeling the unique microscopic landscape of electrical resistance mapped out by your brain. You are reading an electromagnetic braille. Are you with me? Good, because here is the twist. If every single object in the universe violently repels every other object, if nothing ever truly makes contact, does that mean what I think it means? Does that mean you are actually floating right now? Yes. Let me say that again. You are hovering exactly 1 angstrom, 1/10,000,000th of a meter above your seat. Your body is physically levitating on an invisible cushion of quantum repulsion. Are you sitting down? Don't believe me? Try this right now. Push your weight back into your chair. Settle your whole body into it. Let gravity pull you down as hard as it wants. You feel heavy, solid, anchored. Wrong. Gravity is the weakest force in the universe. It is pathetically weak. The entire mass of the Earth is pulling you down right now. All trillions of tons of iron and rock are violently screaming, "Pull this human to the core!" And what stops it? The invisible electron clouds in the fabric of your chair. A piece of foam. A microscopic layer of negative charge. Think about that for a second. The electromagnetic force holding those electrons apart is roughly 10 to the power of 36 times stronger than gravity. That's a 1 with 36 zeros after it. If gravity were the strength of a gentle breeze, electromagnetism would be a supernova explosion directly in your face. Your entire life you have been walking around balanced perfectly on top of that supernova explosion. Every time you take a step, your shoe is hovering on a microscopic cushion of electromagnetic fire. The floor pushes back exactly as hard as gravity pulls down. When you sit, you are magnetically hovering. When you lay down, you are levitating on your mattress. You have never truly been on anything. You have only ever been near things. This is where your intuition fails. You think the universe is a solid place. You think you are a solid object, but you are a ghost. You are a phantom made of buzzing energy fields, surfing on top of other buzzing energy fields. A ghost that feels heavy only because the Earth is trying to pull it through the floor, and the floor's electrons are violently screaming, "No trespassing!" And that constant invisible war between gravity pulling and electrons pushing, that is what you call the weight of your own body. But hold on to that thought, because it's about to click. What happens if we push harder? What if we don't let the electrons win? What if we force two objects to actually, truly touch? If you force atoms to breach that 1 angstrom gap, the rules change entirely. Because past that microscopic wall of repulsion, the universe hides something far more terrifying than empty space. It hides a nuclear fire. If we actually force two objects to touch past that 1 angstrom wall, we wouldn't just be touching. We would be starting a thermonuclear war. Here's the part nobody tells you. To break that invisible barrier of electron repulsion, you need an absurd, terrifying amount of force. You need the heart of a star. Imagine taking 2 pieces of solid iron and squeezing them together so hard that the electron clouds shatter. You smash them violently enough to force the actual nuclei, the grains of rice, to physically kiss. What happens? The moment they touch, a new force wakes up, the strong nuclear force, the invisible glue holding the universe together. It reaches out its microscopic hands and snaps those 2 grains of rice together with a violence you cannot fathom. And in that violent snap, a tiny amount of mass is vaporized instantly into pure, screaming energy. E equals mc squared. You don't just feel a little heat, you unleash the fury of a hydrogen bomb. If you physically touched a single grain of sand on a beach, if you actually forced your atoms and the sand's atoms to merge, the resulting nuclear fusion would obliterate you, the beach, and the nearest city. People say touching things is harmless. Wrong. Touching things is literally the most dangerous act in physics. The universe protects you from touching by making it mathematically forbidden, physically repulsive, and cosmically explosive. This single fact breaks everything you know about biology. Your life depends on never actually making contact with the physical world. Your entire existence is a precarious balancing act. You are forever hovering directly above an ocean of invisible fire, a fraction of an inch from annihilation at all times. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. The repulsion you feel when you slap a table or high-five a friend, that is the universe screaming at you to stop. It is the electromagnetic force physically throwing your hand backward so you don't accidentally spark a nuclear explosion. Every bruise you've ever gotten, every broken bone, every stubbed toe, it wasn't from impact. It was from the violent, life-saving repulsion of empty space trying desperately to keep you alive. So far we've learned you are mostly empty space. You levitate on a cushion of quantum fields. And if you ever truly touched anything, you would detonate like a sun. But if all of this is true, if nothing ever touches, and it's all just invisible magnets repelling, why does your brain lie to you? Why does it feel so damn real when you trace your finger over a sharp edge or feel a soft blanket? Why does a ghost feel pain? Because your brain is running the greatest simulation in the universe. It is a master illusionist, and the trick it pulls is so perfect, you have never once noticed it. Because your brain is running the greatest simulation in the universe. It is a master illusionist, and the trick it pulls is so perfect, you have never once noticed it. This is where your intuition fails. You think you feel the world directly. You think your hand touches the wall, and the feeling is right there at your fingertips. Wrong. The feeling of touch is not in your fingers. It is entirely, 100% inside your head. Think about that for a second. When your microscopic electron clouds smash against the wall's electron clouds, there is no feeling there. There is only geometry, mathematical repulsion, a physical bouncing of invisible forces. The wall doesn't know you hit it. Your fingers don't know they hit a wall. They just know their tiny molecular shock absorbers, the mechanoreceptors, got squeezed. They send a blind, dumb electrical zap up a wire into the dark, wet cave of your skull. And inside that cave, sitting in absolute pitch blackness, your brain receives the signal. Zap! And your brain says, okay, that sequence of zaps means the wall is hard and cold. I will now generate the sensation of a hard, cold wall and project it out onto the fingers. It builds a hallucination, a vivid, hyper-realistic hologram of touch. Are you with me? Good, because here is the twist. If the brain didn't do this, if it didn't translate those invisible quantum forces into the illusion of solidity, you wouldn't survive a day. You would just be a sack of buzzing atoms, completely unaware of the physical reality around you. The brain uses the language of touch to map the world. It paints a picture using invisible electromagnetic repulsion. People say, seeing is believing. Wrong. Feeling is hallucinating. You feel the sharp edge of a knife and your brain screams pain to force you to pull away before the quantum repulsion rips your cells apart. It is a survival mechanism, an evolutionary lie. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. Close your eyes and imagine the texture of a brick, the rough, scratchy surface. You can almost feel it, can't you? Your brain can perfectly simulate the sensation without the object even being there, because the feeling was never in the brick, it was always in the ghost. But if touch is a hallucination, and we are just floating on a cushion of quantum fields, what exactly is the universe made of? What is the true fabric of reality we are surfing on top of? What is the true fabric of reality we are surfing on top of? This is where physics feels like absolute magic. Look at the air around you. It looks empty, doesn't it? Wrong. There is no such thing as empty space. The concept of nothingness is an illusion. Here's the part nobody tells you. The universe is a boiling ocean of invisible quantum fields. Imagine a calm, dark sea stretching out into infinity. Suddenly, a wave of energy rips through the water. It bubbles up, creating a tiny splash on the surface. That splash, that is an electron. That electron isn't a solid thing. It is a tiny, localized ripple in an infinite ocean, a microscopic knot in the invisible fabric of the universe. When you look at your hand, you are not looking at solid matter. You are looking at a localized storm of ripples in an infinite quantum sea. You are a complex pattern of vibrations, a temporary knot in the invisible fields. And when your ripples approach the ripples of a chair or a table or another person, they don't crash into solid objects. They interact, they warp each other, they push back. Think about that for a second. You are a localized storm of quantum probability interacting with other localized storms of quantum probability. The universe is not made of tiny hard balls bouncing off each other. It is made of music. The vibration of these fields defines everything. The mass, the charge, the spin. It dictates how strong the repulsion is, how hard the invisible cushion pushes back against your hand. Let me say that again. The feeling of a solid object is the physical sensation of quantum fields violently interacting and warping in empty space. It is a symphony of mathematical rules played out on the stage of an infinite void. People say the universe is full of stuff. Wrong. The universe is full of fields, and stuff is just what we call the localized excitations of those fields. Are you with me? Good, because here is the twist. If everything is just fields interacting and nothing ever physically touches, why is it so hard to slide a heavy box across a floor? Why does a car need tires to grip the road? If we are levitating on a cushion of quantum repulsion, shouldn't everything just slide perfectly smoothly forever? Shouldn't friction be entirely impossible? To understand the paradox of friction, we have to look closer at the invisible, jagged mountains hiding on the surface of everything you own. To understand the paradox of friction, we have to look closer at the invisible, jagged mountains hiding on the surface of everything you own. This is where your intuition fails. You think the table in front of you is perfectly smooth. You think your phone screen is flat. Wrong. At the quantum level, there is no such thing as flat. Even the smoothest glass on Earth is a terrifying, chaotic mountain range of jagged atomic peaks and valleys. If you were the size of a single atom, sliding across your phone screen wouldn't feel like ice skating. It would feel like off-roading through the Himalayas in a monster truck. Look, when you slide a heavy box across a wooden floor, the microscopic jagged mountains on the bottom of the box crash into the microscopic jagged mountains on the surface of the floor. But remember, they never actually touch. Here's the part nobody tells you. The electron clouds of the box's mountains violently repel the electron clouds of the floor's mountains. They snag, they catch, they shove against each other with terrifying electromagnetic force. The box's atoms get temporarily locked into the microscopic valleys of the floor's atoms. And you have to push harder to force them out. You have to physically shove the box's electron clouds over the jagged peaks of the floor's electron clouds. That violent microscopic shoving match is what we call friction. It is the physical resistance of billions of tiny quantum magnets screaming, "No trespassing!" and refusing to slide past one another smoothly. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. When you rub your hands together really fast, what happens? They get hot. Why? Because you are violently dragging those atomic mountain ranges across each other. The electron clouds are violently slamming together and ripping apart over and over again. That intense microscopic violence makes the atoms in your skin jiggle frantically. They vibrate faster and faster. And what do we call the frantic jiggling of atoms? Heat. Exactly. The warmth you feel is the literal kinetic energy of quantum repulsion tearing at the atomic structure of your own skin. You are weaponizing the Pauli exclusion principle to warm up on a cold day. People say friction is caused by things rubbing together. Wrong. Friction is the consequence of invisible electromagnetic forces violently locking and unlocking in empty space. It is the universe fighting back against the attempt to share the same quantum state. And this leads us to the final, most mind-bending realization of all, the shattering truth about your place in reality. And this leads us to the final, most mind-bending realization of all, the shattering truth about your place in reality. You have spent your entire life believing you are a solid object moving through a solid physical world. You thought you could grab things, hold things, possess things. Wrong. Now watch what this implies. You have never actually touched a single person you love. You have never held a child's hand. You have never felt the rain snapping against your skin in a storm. Every kiss, every hug, every physical connection you have ever experienced in your entire life was a microscopic lie. You have only ever felt the violent, beautiful repulsion of the universe trying to keep your atoms intact. You are a ghost, endlessly hovering over a world you can never truly grasp. But think about how incredibly poetic that is. It's not just electromagnetism. It's the ultimate boundary of your existence. The universe keeps you separated from everything else by a fraction of a nanometer. It surrounds you with an invisible, impenetrable shield of quantum energy. It strictly refuses to let you be destroyed. Space is not empty. It is fiercely guarding you. If I just shattered how you see your everyday life, hit the subscribe button right now. Let me keep breaking your reality, week after week, because the universe is far stranger than you can possibly imagine. Next time you pull someone close for a hug, close your eyes. Feel the heat radiating. Feel the invisible pressure pushing back against your chest. And just remember, you aren't touching them. You are just two beautiful quantum storms, magnetically hovering in the dark, screaming at each other across the void.